up a scene. Coffee cup, cat's tail, dancing in the steam. Every little click spins a brand new theme. Mrs. Right, that's right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mrs. Right podcast. I'm Bronte Bennett, author of The Squire, and I'm very happy today to have with me Angela. I'm going to come straight over to Angela and ask her to give us her once upon a time story, how she came to be the writer she is today, and a little bit about you, Angela. So welcome. It's so lovely to have you on the podcast. But before we get into your book, tell me about you, a little bit about, who you are, how it all started, and how you came to write the book in the first place.
My author name is Angela Fuller, which is my actual name, because I wanted to be raw and write about my life, which became travel, but it is actually it's a series of books and it's actually about my whole life. So I'm going to go forwards and backwards eventually.
Well, life does, doesn't it? So that's entirely normal and natural.
Yeah, and it's a full circle. So I have my book in my hand actually, but if you see the book, you'll see I have a circle here. And the book is called My Life on the Roads, but it's actually L.I.F.E. So it's my liberation, inspiration, friendship, and equality on the road. So, as I say, it's a series of books and life. I've found out things along the way, which I would never have found out if I wasn't writing a book. So it also was a lot of discovery for me without going into too much detail. How I came about writing the book, in 2011, I was planning to go to Argentina to teach, and I decided to go via Brazil. I knew a couple who were living in Brazil, and I thought I'll go there for the carnival, spend 1 month in Brazil, and then I'll go to Argentina to teach. However, plans changed. I ended up at a couch surfing meeting. For anyone of you who doesn't know what that is, that's when people stay on other people's sofas for free, basically because they're like-minded people who are interested in travel. So they exchange stories and you spend time with them and you learn a bit about the culture. And so I went to a meeting and I found out about all these fantastic places. And being the traveller I am, I travelled to Argentina. I was on my way to Florianopolis and I met a couple. They were the only British couple on the bus. And I'd lived in Costa del Sol, so we had something in common. We started talking. They heard many of my stories, and Chris and Carol said, you should be a school lecturer, go around schools and lecture about your life.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I never even went to school hardly. I bunked, so yeah, not kind of me. And the other one was a tour guide, which didn't tickle my boat. And the third one was write a book. And I just thought, yeah, I'm going to write a book. But what kept me going was the fact that a couple of days later, I rang my mum up and I told my mum I'm writing a book, and I told her about my past and that I went out raving and I participated in the substances, which, was a rave scene. I mean, there was 50,000 people at some raves, so it's not as though, people didn't do it. It's pretty much like the 60s, but it's more kind of hush-hush that people did it. Like when you talk to people, loads of people will say, oh, I went out raving back in the day.
Yeah, it's true.
So I told my mum, but my brother took drugs. And so it was a massive, massive thing to say to my mum. I decided at the same time, I'm going to set up a charity. So it wasn't about me. So I had this massive dream that I'm going to write about my whole life. I'm going to make a difference for other people's lives, because in my books, I'm going to touch on subjects. Because as I said, this is a travel book, but it's not. It's about my life. So it's going I want to set up a charity for children who've been sexually abused, alcoholism and drugs. I want children who get taken away from their parents. So they're not bad children. They're just children who've been dealt a bad hand. And unfortunately, there's something like 30% of abusers will re-abuse. So if you put a child into the system when they're innocent, but yet they've seen that, there's more likelihood that that sort of child will continue. So it's also another reason why I have a circle around because it's a cycle of life. So I want to break that chain. And the reason I've chosen them particular subjects is because my brother was the drugs. Could have been sexually abused. I'm not 100%, but I was. And also, my mum's best friend was an alcoholic. So as a child, I had so much upheaval. I saw so much. And that's what made me strong enough to go and travel. And then traveling became my therapy. And I was so eager to find out what happened in other people's lives and cultures that I continued. And so when I met that couple, it was 2011, and I started traveling in 1994. So that's why I've written a book. And to be honest, that's what kept me going.
Wow. I mean, Angela, your story. So there's a couple of things that occur to me. First of all, there'll be more people listening to this that can relate to a number of elements in your story. And that's always been my experience. So there are things that we tend to be cautious about sharing because we're not sure how people are going to receive it and whether they're going to make judgments. But when you are, as you put it, raw enough and authentic enough to open up and share your story, isn't it astonishing how many people go, oh God, yeah, me too. I've experienced stuff like that in my family or in my own life or with friends. And I think it's people who are brave enough to say, yeah, okay, on the face of it, you might think this is a book about travel, but it's a book about your journey through life and how travel has, as you put it, was your therapy. And I suppose that leads me to my next question, which is, if you're describing the people who would get the most from reading your book, the sorts of people who would really take something positive, that sense of hope.
No, the idea is I wasn't handed the best deck of cards. No, I made my life the way it is. I've had these most amazing experiences. I've been to over 60 countries. I've lived in 11 countries. But I made it happen. I came from a one-parent family, no money. I left England with £1,200 in 1994. I was a child who was brought up in second-hand clothes, school dinners. And yet now, look at this amazing life I've had and these amazing experiences. So it's basically sort of saying, whoever you are, you are in control of your own destiny. 18 years old, I sat in the back of a car with my best mate, Andy, and we were chatting about what we wanted to do when we were older. And I said, I want to travel the world. And I achieved it. And so I've always been like, it doesn't matter what people go through in life. When somebody goes through something, if they've been through nothing, that's massive. So you can't take away from people how they feel because it's how it affects them. And I think that's something I learned from traveling, because people can have nothing but be happy. And you see that.
That's true. Yeah.
And
you're absolutely right. It gives you perspective, doesn't it? I'm really curious because I love travel and have travelled, but nowhere near to the extent you have. And I have to ask how you finance your way around 60 countries over the course of all of those years. Because there'll be lots of people who are going, oh my God, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. That's the thing that but how the hell do I pay for it? Because that's always what people wonder, isn't it? They think you have to have loads of money to be able to travel the world. So you must have taken all kinds of interesting jobs in the pursuit of your adventures.
Yeah, I have. I've done everything. So, as I say, this is my first book. So in my first book, I go on holiday to Egypt, which my father was Egyptian, but I don't know him. So it was my
Okay.
roots. So I
Yeah.
go back to Egypt, and I mean it's a fascinating country. I only went to Luxor, but the sculptures, the monuments, just amazing. It's so mystical as well, which I like.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of gave me a hunger for wanting to see other countries like that. And in the book, I go there, so I talk about that. So, I mean, you were asking me a question earlier. You said who would be interested or who would, get something from your
Yeah.
book. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who get something from my book. Someone who wants to travel but never traveled,
Mm.
because I've written the book so you go on the journey. It's not, you're
Yeah.
not just following my journey. You feel like you're on the journey. And the one thing, although I'm not yet a successful author, I obviously believe I'm going to be, but the other side of the coin is I've just started getting my reviews back, and all of them say captivated book. You do feel like you're going on the journey. So I've managed to accomplish what I wanted. So anybody who's never traveled and anyone who has traveled, because it's going to trigger back your own memories from where you were. And which is one of the things I've definitely heard. People have said they want to dig out their own diaries. They've wanted to dig out their own photos. And then it's people just to inspire people to live their life in general.
Honestly, I think what you're telling me, I reckon anybody would enjoy it. I really like what you said about how it feels like so it's almost like if you can't afford to travel, buy the book, and that way you can travel through the stories that you tell. So anybody would enjoy it. And we were talking about how you financed your way around and you did all kinds of mad jobs. Give me a couple of examples of some of the crazy jobs that you might have done.
Well, in this book, I end up going to Hong Kong, and when I was in Hong Kong, I went for a job I was going everywhere for looking for work. So I mean, I landed in Hong Kong, not knowing anybody, on my own, and it was 1994, so it was still British. So hence why I ended up there. And somebody was turning up a month after I was there who'd recommended it, but he wasn't there yet. So I was looking everywhere for work, and I got a job in a silver service as a waitress, and it felt way above me. And in the lunchtime, I sort of said, shall I do the washing up? Because I knew they needed someone to do the washing up. And I was literally in front of this industrial, massive dishwasher, just loading in, loading out, loading in, with my back to everyone in the hot, sweaty kitchen. And I just was tears were rolling down my eyes, and I was thinking, I can't do this. No matter how much I don't want to go back to England, I can't do this. So I wouldn't say it was the maddest job, but I then became a hostess in Hong Kong. So I went to a completely opposite side, where I used to sit and chat to rich men for money. And I've written about it in the book. I've actually done it with real excerpts of what I wrote in my diary. And I gave the chapter title, Keep It Real, because it is Keep It Real. So I didn't do anything other than sit and chat to rich men for money. But there's always that, oh, yeah, I bet you did.
Of course, people are going to, because we like to create as much drama as possible. And even if the drama didn't exist in our imaginations, we enjoy it. So it's just human nature, isn't it? We're always looking for something that we would never have the audacity or the daring to do. I think that's the thing. So we like to project it onto other people.
It's so different. I mean, that's one of the things you learn. I mean, that I have written about that in this book, as I say. Is that in Hong Kong, or in Asia,
Yeah.
should I say, it's totally different. It isn't,
Yeah.
they used to finish their business deals at the hostess clubs because that
Yeah.
was how you finished a business deal. So it's acceptable. The wives
Different
knew they
culture.
did that. It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then obviously you've got the triads there and so, and prostitution's been going on out there because I read Susie Wong when I was in Hong Kong, even though it was fictional,
Yeah.
it was based on
Yeah.
real life. That's one of the
Yeah.
things I always liked to do when I was traveling, was read a book about the country I was in. So I read Celestine
Yeah.
Prophecy in South America. I think it was,
Oh, yeah. God, I love that book. God, I haven't read that for about 30 years.
yeah,
Oh, I've got to write that down. The Celestine Prophecy.
yeah, I love that
Oh, I
book.
love that. I'm going to have to read that again.
So I was in San Francisco and I went for a job as a nanny after reading that book. And the man looked like my best mate, Andy. And I was just like, I've got the job. I've got the job. I'm like, I've got it. And then I got a phone call. Yeah, you got the job.
Whew.
That's
So
the job I did. I was a nanny in San Francisco where I wasn't even meant to be working. I was working illegally. So
Yeah.
you do things just to get
Wow.
there. I've worked with children though. I was
Yeah.
a nursery nurse in England as well. So I'd already
Bloody
done
hell, Angela.
accounts in England, a receptionist in England, and nursery nurse certificate and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a waitress. So I had waitressing,
Yeah.
kids, and office work behind my belt already
Yeah.
before I went travelling, which helped.
Yeah, absolutely. God. So far, one of the things that happens when you launch a podcast like this and you reach out to authors, indie authors and traditionally published, is you want to read everybody's books. And so I've read 2 or 3 books so far from authors that I've connected with. Yours is 100% on the list. And there's just not enough hours in the day to read all the stuff that you want to read. But I am telling you now that I have got to read this book of yours because your life sounds absolutely extraordinary. There'll be a lot of relatable content in there for me. I was in my late 20s, I think, when I went off to Tanzania to do voluntary work because I had a career and it was all going very well, but I felt unfulfilled. And I think travel has always given me that sense of fulfillment. And one of the things that you said was you see the way other people live and they are happy with so little. And that, I can imagine, gives you that sense of perspective. How much of your identity now as a woman connects with this adventurer that you are?
I think everyone just knows I'm known for travel. It's I'm expected that I would always go away. That's how people see me. I'm always going to be a traveller. And I have always been a traveller. One of the funny things, though, is because I don't know my dad, was my mum came after me going away, maybe after 6 years of travel or something like that. I came home and she turned around and she said to me, "You didn't know your dad travelled the world?" I was like, "No, because you've never told me." I don't know my dad. And she said, "Jay had a suitcase of all stickers of where he'd been all around the world. And the Egyptians are known for travel." So it makes you wonder if it is something in your roots that make you
Yeah,
the person you are, as well
definitely.
as your upbringing. Because obviously, I've always said my strength came from my mum. I told you she brought me up on her own, and she didn't have an easy life. So, as I say, also one of the things I mentioned in the book is my brother was gay.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason my brother took drugs, I believe, was to escape society being against him being gay.
Mm,
And I saw things
yeah.
that people think that kids don't see, and I did. I remember
Mm,
watching my brother pour cough medicine into a can of Coke, because cough medicine used to contain morphine back in the day.
mm,
And I was only 6 years old. And
yeah.
obviously my brother didn't think I would have seen that. But I watched him do it, and I remember watching that. So
Mm,
you do see a lot as a child. But yeah, so I found out so much about my brother, like he was a gay activist. And so, you know, he made a difference for gays today. I was brought up not being told things, but just and accepting them, because to me that was the norm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all I saw as a child was other people's prejudice, because that's
Yeah.
how I saw it. I didn't see it as in, and that's why, because like I briefly said earlier, that's why I always felt like it was my mum, my brother, because my mum was dealing with all this, but I never realised all of this affected me. And also the sexual abuse I kept as a secret, so nobody knew. So that was all on me. So I didn't tell my mum until I was writing this book.
Wow, that must have been a really difficult conversation. Let's talk about
Yes.
how you wrote the book. So we know why you wrote the book, and we've heard snippets about your life that are enough to tempt us to buy the book, because now you've given us just enough for us to be like, oh my God, I really need to read this book. I need to learn more about this woman and her story. When it comes to the actual writing, there are lots. So the reason I'm asking these questions, loads of people out there who will be thinking, I think I've got a book in me. I think that I've got a story to tell. How did you go about the business of writing the book? How long did it take? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did you have to go to an edit? Give me the mechanics of the writing part for the listeners.
Okay. So for me, it's a series of books, so it's not one book. And I never realised how big the book was going to be, because I started the book in 2011, and I probably stopped writing after COVID, because I was away travelling when COVID happened. So I was writing about that as I was away. So I would go away and I would write and I would travel. So writing became part of my travel. And as you can all probably see, I'm quite olive-skinned, being half Egyptian. So I'm quite fortunate. I didn't have to go to the beach all day. I would go to the beach at 4 PM for 1 hour, and I'd be brown. So I don't have to spend my days. So I spent my days on my balconies, sweating, writing. And I really was sweating and writing. And sometimes, you know, going without food, because it's terrible. You get really gripped, and then you're looking, you think, God, it's 4 o'clock. I haven't eaten anything.
Yeah.
And so I did that. One of the things what kept me going as well was, so I believe in, one thing I believe in, everything happened to me for a reason. And I believe if you find your path, so I still believe I'm going to be a famous author. I know it might sound silly to some, but that's what I believe is my path, is to do the journey, and then I can set up the charity. And because I have no children, my idea is that whatever I invest will then go to the charity anyway. So, for example, if I don't own a flat, but say I bought a flat, it would still go back to the charity, because it would be left to the charity. So, hopefully all the books would also finance the charity. And then obviously if there's a series of books, because not just have I got books, I've got photography. I'm into photography. So I could bring out a whole book on my photos, because I have albums and albums of photography. And I like to take pictures of the people, the scenery. And I've actually thought some of my stuff might be good for, you know, even I went and saw like historical sites, and I don't even know if the historical sites have some of the pictures, you know, in that quality. Like there was a place in South America I went to, and I went back, and it's like the wall that I have a photo in front of is no longer there. And I'm like, I wonder if they've got a picture of how it looked back then, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're reconstructing a lot of it, you know, you just wonder, like, because back then people didn't protect that those archaeological sites.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Wow, fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing is it's a series of books, and you're a purpose-driven writer. So you've got a purpose. The charity is your driving force, and it must feel as if you've always been meant to do this. Like this is your life, Angela. You go, you travel, you explore, you experience, you come back, you catalogue it in chronology, and you share it with the world, and that will help you. It's like a lovely circle. I understand the circle now, and that means that you bring it back and you invest it into the futures of others who might be having a difficult start in their lives. Okay, so you traveled. I mean, it sounds like heaven to me, just traveling and writing. I know that you had to work as well in order to keep feeding yourself. And once you'd written it, so you come. Did you engage an editor, or did you get anybody to design your cover? How did you format it and make it into a book?
I was lucky. I had lots of beta readers, and beta readers came back with like help, and then we've got to this stage where people were coming back and helping, and then all of a sudden I noticed they changed things, like, added. Like, I was talking about a riverbank in Thailand, in Kanchanaburi, back in the day, and they'd added, on a hammock, and it's like, no, back then it was just a plain bank. No hammocks, just a grass bank. You're going back Thailand, 1994, it was different. It more and more developed as the years have gone on, So I'm the person who was there who can visually see it.
Yeah.
So when it came to the last part, then I started to use Grammarly.
Yeah.
So
big fan of Grammarly.
Grammarly a little bit, which I think it's fantastic for, may I add. My wingman. What sounds better, this or this? I've written both of them, but what one do you prefer? So I use it as just, because sometimes you haven't got that person just to voice over, like, do you like this version or do you like that version better? But it's all my idea. And I also was really lucky. This is what I was going to say earlier. When I was in Costa Rica, I met a lady. One of the other jobs I did, I got into timeshare so I could travel the world and work. So I was in Costa Rica, and I was staying somewhere, and there was an editor. And this lady, I got her to read my first version. So I started writing in Argentina. Then I went to Ecuador to teach, and then that job fell through. So I went to the Galapagos Islands. That's the sort of thing I do. Because I'd been there 16 years before in Ecuador and I thought, you never know when you're going to have this opportunity again. So just do it. I had the savings at the time, so I did. And then I flew back to England, and I decided to go to Central America because I remember my friends saying, why are you coming back? And it's like, I need to recharge my batteries. I just lost a job. I needed to be with my mum, see my family, but I already knew I want to go Central America next. And that's what I did. But when I was in Costa Rica, I met this lady. She was an editor. She read it. She said, you've definitely got a book. And that was just from all my notes of everything I was writing, including in my brother and everything, my childhood, everything she sort of read about. She said it reminded her of Angela's Ashes, but I think that would be more my earlier books, which will be later, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And she actually sent me Angela's Ashes from Canada because she was Canadian, to Costa Rica. But at that point, I'd already left because it took so long for the post. And I never got it, but I spoke to her, and unfortunately, I asked her about editing, and she turned around and said, I've got cancer, and then she died.
Oh.
And she was a lovely, lovely woman, because her daughter was a drug addict, and she'd taken full responsibility for her granddaughter. So she was on holiday with her husband and her granddaughter, because they were like taking over as her parents, because so she was lovely, really nice person. So just hearing that right at the beginning, you've got a story, that kept me going as well. So that was something. So I've had help, as I say, from people, but in the end I did it. And even the formatting, but it took me about a month.
It's a hard job, isn't it? I did my own formatting, had a bit of help from there's a couple of pieces of software. Which one have I got? Vellum. It's called Vellum, and I think you have to pay for it. I think it was £100 or something, but you literally drop your manuscript in and it formats it for you. It's just like worth every penny, because it saves so much time. I think, I'm self-published and I know how much work goes into it. So on that point, and our sort of last part of this conversation is about what advice you would give to others who are starting on their journey to writing or are independently published. What advice would you give other writers based on your experience, things to watch out for?
I don't know, because I think, like, if you're going to write a book, I think you just need to know, one, it can take a long time, because in my case, it's taken me 14 years, but it is more than one book. So that's one thing, which I've discovered because I didn't know that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Two, that marketing is also very hard. It's not just writing the book. So be prepared for that, because once you've written the book, you might think that's it now. But really, on Amazon, there is so many books that you're in a sea of books. So you've got to try and find somehow, because I'm still trying to, which is fortunately that Bronte's invited me on her podcast today, is to try and get yourself out there. Because unfortunately, even I've tried things like, so far, contacting people who are C-listers, but nobody, even if you can get to email them, because a lot of them you can't even get to email because their account will be private, but not one person has replied because they're too busy. So you might think it's easy, but it's not. But I think if you believe in yourself, never give up. And another thing what kept me going, because I'm very spiritual, was when I decided to write my book, and after I phoned in my mum, the next day, it was the carnival in Brazil. So obviously it was very lively. But I had a hangover and I was sitting there and I'd met this German girl, and I started talking to this Swiss guy, so obviously speaks German. And he had a nice shirt on, and we were chatting, and this is where I turn around and say, and with the money I'm going to set up a charity. And it was like these words came out of my mouth, and I'm going, I must have had it in there all my life, because I do remember was being on a bus in India and, finding all about Mother Teresa. I'm thinking, I want to be a Mother Teresa one day. And I've always loved children. But it stems back to, I think, my beginning, because when I was with the foster parents, I felt responsible for all the other children. And I've always looked after children from day dot. So even though I don't have any. So when I said to him about it, he turned around and said, you want to read this book, Think Rich, Grow Rich. And he originally was like, I'll send you a copy. And then when I said about setting up my own charity, he said, no, have my PDF copy. And he gave it to me. And it's all about people who basically were, maybe they're searching for gold in a gold mine. And they've got right down to the bottom, nothing. And, they've got probably $100 left, and it's just like, right, we can go now or whatever, or we can just move on, just, give it another hour at this spot and just try for another hour, even though we're exhausted. And then they hit gold. Yeah. It's all about, and also the people who make themselves something are usually the people who come from nothing, because the people who come from something will only go up the ladder. The people who come from nothing have got nothing to lose, so they'll exceed. And that's why, it's all thinking outside of that box. And I just believe I've had signs throughout my life that this is my path. Everything happened for me to make a difference. That's, why it happened to me. And even if I'm not right, there's one thing it did do. It helped me through it all. But let's hope I am right. I'm here to make a difference.
Angela, that is the perfect way to draw this conversation to a close. You are a writer with purpose. And I think if belief is currency, you are the wealthiest woman in the world. And why wouldn't you succeed? I will do everything I can to encourage others to pick up your book and to read it, starting with me, by the way. I'll be ordering a copy straight after this. I'll put in the comments. So in the comments for this podcast, you're going to find how to find Angela on her social media platforms and where you can buy her book, so that you can stay connected with this incredible woman and her incredible story, and as a result be part of something bigger than the books themselves and in helping children who are having difficult starts. So Angela, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the Mrs. Right podcast.
Thank you.
And I think we'll probably keep in touch. I'll let you know once I've read the book. I'll give you some of my comments.
It's actually one of the things I always say. I want to hear what people have got to say. You know, I want to know, and even if it's a negative criticism, but it's constructive, I'm happy because, you know, I'm very much see what you get sort of person, and I like that back, as long as it's not malicious.
Yeah, quite right. Absolutely right. Thanks, Angela. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody now, but stay tuned for the next episode of the Mrs. Right podcast. But it's been such a pleasure, and I genuinely mean what I say about I will be buying that book.
Tap, 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 she's lining up a scene. Coffee cup, cat's tail, dancing in the steam. Every little click spins a brand new theme. Mrs. Right, that's right.